noodles, are Indian consumers getting a different deal, an inferior deal? Then, how does a toxic plant like Dhatura end up being listed and sold through major food delivery platforms? Who was checking what was reaching your doorstep? A very interesting story that needs your attention. And finally, as NSA Ajit Doval meets Wang Yi in Beijing, India and China reopen a crucial channel on the border, but can diplomatic engagement translate into lasting peace and predictability along the LSE? That is the important question here. Those are the stories we put in your interest, but first, the top headlines. Delhi Chief Minister Rekha Gupta chairs a key meeting of Health Department on the government's preparedness for the growing H1N1 cases in the city. Delhi Health Minister Pankaj Singh and senior officials attend the meeting. Nitin Gadkari's office reacts on Union Minister's remark that he cannot work as much as before and the new generation should take over public responsibilities. The office says the minister's remarks were taken out of context. They were not related to politics. The students in Bihar protested over the BPSC exam irregularities, demanding cancellation of the 70th Bihar Public Service Commission examination. Protesters broke through the barricades whilst they continued their march from Gandhi Maidan towards Raj Bhavan in Patna today. A red letter day for India's digital payments infrastructure. Prime Minister Modi hails the UPI as a major turning point in India's digital payments journey as the country's flagship real-time payment system completed a decade, highlighting its unprecedented scale, the reach and growing global footprint. National Security Advisor Ajit Doval meets Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi ahead of the 25th round of India-China Special Representatives talks. The boundary is going to be in focus. The leaders discuss peace and stability along the border and ways to strengthen bilateral ties across key areas. The Trump administration plans to revoke non-immigrant visas of foreigners seeking or applying for asylum in the United States. The move is part of a wider immigration crackdown, as reports suggest up to 2,200,000 visas may be affected. What if I told you that the Fanta you buy in India may not be the same Fanta being sold in the United Kingdom or London? Same global brand, same logo, same orange bottle, but according to a Reuters investigation now, the Indian version contains nearly 3 times as much sugar as the version in the United Kingdom. That's just 63 calories, by the way. And that's exactly where our story begins. Because this isn't simply about one soft drink, one brand. It's about KitKat, it's about Maggi and several other global food brands, the ones that we really love, household staples, and a very simple question. Does the Indian consumer get the same product, the same information and the same level of protection? Let's start with Fanta, of course. Reuters report says that A can sold in London contains 63 calories, while the Indian version contains nearly 3 times as much sugar. The Indian product also contains an artificial food color whose presence triggers a much more prominent warning in Europe, while in India, the color is listed in relatively small print, that too on the backside. So the question isn't necessarily why is the recipe different. Companies can and do change recipes because of local regulations, prices, ingredients, tastes, and consumer preferences. The question is, why should transparency be so different? Look at KitKat. Let's take KitKat, for example. Reuters found that the standard Indian KitKat contains about 4.5% cocoa solids. The Australian milk chocolate version contains at least 22% cocoa. And that's almost 5 times the cocoa content. Again, different markets have different formulations, but when the difference is this large, the Indian consumer has every reason to ask, what exactly are we paying for and what exactly are we eating? Then there is, of course, Maggi, the noodles we all love, the 2-minute instant noodles. Many variants sold in India use palm oil, whilst many versions sold in Britain use the more expensive sunflower oil. What's the difference? And here's the interesting part. Some Maggi packets sold in Britain are actually made in India, yet carry prominent front of pack warnings about the high salt and sodium content. So the debate gets bigger than just the ingredient list. It becomes a debate about information, what you're getting, big food, the warning label. India has been debating front of pack health warnings for years now. The idea is simple. Instead of making consumers turn the packet around and decode a nutrition table, black and white table that you see at the back of your products, why not put a clear warning right in the front? High sugar, high salt, high fat in big bold letters out on the front of the packet. But big food, the consumer giants, they've pushed back. Industry representatives have argued that warning symbols could be confusing or ineffective. How rich is that? And have pushed greater emphasis on portion control rather. For this huge a population, portion control is their answer. After a tense meeting with industry executives that took place back in March, the food regulator moved away from colorful interpretative warnings and instead proposed a more conventional black and white nutrition table that we all see. The Supreme Court is now scrutinizing that approach. And that makes this much bigger than a fight over just food labels. Because India's packaged food and the beverage market is worth more than $100 billion. Industry estimates cited by Reuters suggest nearly 80% of the products could be high in fats, in sugars, and salts. And a recent Lancet study projects that 450 million Indians could be overweight or obese by the year 2050. At the same time, Indian consumers are becoming much more health conscious. So here is the fundamental question. Do we trust consumers to make the choice, or do we first have to make sure that they can see the information in the first place? And perhaps the most uncomfortable question of all, if clearer information and labels are already being used in several European markets, why shouldn't Indian consumers get equally clear information on our packaging? So let's look beyond the outrage, ask the experts, are these genuinely different products because markets are different? Is big food resisting warnings because they threaten sales? And is India getting the transparency its consumers deserve? Let's open this up. Shikha Sharma, scientific mentor, ran Fort with us on the broadcast. Professor Bijon Kumar Misra is soon going to be with us, consumer policy expert. And Dr. Shochin Bajaj, founder director, Ojala Cygnus Hospitals, with us on the broadcast as well. Shikhaji, to begin with the basics first and foremost, all those brands that I cited, when we talk about nearly 3 times the sugar in Fanta than its counterpart in the United Kingdom, only 63 calories. I'm sure it's way more than the orange drink that we consume here back at home. How meaningful are these differences, the KitKats, the Maggis, the Fantas? What's your assessment here?
See, the first thing I want to highlight that in the Reuters news, it was clearly mentioned that in the European markets, they are using a more expensive sunflower oil, and in Indian markets, they're using palm oil. Yep. Even if we go with the logic that, okay, you have to localize the taste and all, this is no logic at all. Why would you use an inferior quality oil or a more saturated oil where FSSAI has done so much campaign that please don't use saturated oil? So I don't think this can pass off as local taste or local requirements. This is clearly substandard quality being used. That's number one. Number two, that if in European markets it's selling well with one third the sugar level,
Yeah.
what makes them feel that in Indian markets it won't sell at that point of time? Because if you really see, whether when you look at KitKat or when you look at Fanta or any other international brand, Indians are buying it because it's international.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why won't they just buy something else? So they are buying it for the brand, and if the brand is doing discrimination, I think this is something very serious, and it needs to be looked into.
You're absolutely right. You see, Shikhaji, I myself love a KitKat, it's tasty, it's really nice. But now that I've understood that, it's using 4.5% cocoa in the Indian version, about 22% in the milk chocolate variant in Australia, how significant is that difference as well? Let's throw some light on that as well.
Absolutely. A very good example that now, if you have to make a chocolate, you have to have a certain fat content. If they're only using one third the fat content of dairy, that means the rest is all oil. So they are fundamentally replacing actual dairy with oil, which is substandard or it is suboptimal, even for health, and passing it off as a chocolate. So that's as clear as as the morning sunlight, that they are supplementing expensive ingredients with substandard lower quality ingredient for the Indian market.
All right, all right. Dr. Bajaj, you see, Indians, what do you say? Are we actually more vulnerable to the health consequences of high sugar, salt, the ultra processed foods, or is this argument being overstated? There is, of course, the capitalist reflex. There is, of course, the marketing angle in all of this. But looking at this very clinically, with the aisle-long chip packets, the soft drinks, the chocolates that we see, and the attractive packaging, who has the time to really turn it around and look at the black and white ingredient list or the nutrition table at the back? But before that, how vulnerable are we as a population, as a demography, to consequences of high sugar, salt, and ultra processed foods?
So, Kabir, let me start off by saying that I don't want this debate to become an industry versus activist kind of a debate. I am speaking from a purely doctor point of view. And as you asked me, what are the clinical effects? Right? Every day, our hospitals are treating consequences of obesity, diabetes, hypertension, fatty liver disease, heart disease, kidney disease. And we are spending an enormous amount of resources treating these diseases, which are coming to us at the end of the pipeline, right? Thus, prevention has to begin at the supermarket shelf, which this industry is saying we should not do. I am not saying we should ban the chips, cola, or the biscuits. You can sell them, let people enjoy them. You yourself enjoy a KitKat. But if the product contains very high sugar, salt, saturated fat, palm oil, etc., just tell the consumer clearly on the front of the packet. Why are you trying to hide the information in small print? And why are you expecting an ordinary consumer to stand there with the calculator trying to calculate percentages that this gram is this much of my daily dose? I don't think we have to at all tolerate this. I think the industry should come around, and it has to come around to this.
But why do you think the pushback actually happened? There is a consumer-centric sentiment that has to be understood. We're soon going to be joined by a consumer policy expert as well. But simply putting the numbers on the back of packet, I don't want to make this, industry versus activist myself. But, I'm at a loss for words, because I feel that the Indians, which is a huge and a great market, are being pushed inferior products, are being pushed the lesser products. Does a consumer realistically understand what 30 or 40 grams of sugar really means? I mean, it's great. Somebody who's educated, comes from a privileged background, understands that. Not many would even bother turning the packet around in the first place.
Absolutely. And as the industry has said in this argument, that it is an unnecessary scaremongering, and if you try and do this, 80% of the products will qualify for
that's
the warning.
That's funny, actually. That's funny.
Yeah, it would have been funny if it wouldn't have been so sad, right? If 80% of the products qualify for a warning, that is not an argument against the warning. It's actually telling us something very important about the food environment that has been created for us.
Yeah, you're actually right. Shekhaji, what's your assessment here? The same Maggi packet that is probably manufactured here back at home but is shipped to the United Kingdom, those packages right on the front say in big bold letters, high in salt, high in sodium, that too with a red background. If the quantity is in moderate number, it has an orange background. If it's okay to eat, it has a green background. All of that, the big food and the big companies say won't work. It's going to confuse the consumer here. Basically, they're saying, in other words, I'm going to, stick my neck out and say they're going to get worried and not buy our product. Is that so?
Absolutely. And here is what I have to say is that when India is such a big market for these companies, it is important that Indian customers have to be given their share of due and a transparent labeling pattern. What I'm saying is that if it's being sold in Europe under a certain quality standards and FSSAI is pushing that those quality standards be maintained in India, I see no reason logically why they can't do it because they're doing it already. It's not that they have to change their factories, they'll incur losses. Basically, they're trying to push as much as they can, hoping that the FSSAI will come around and agree to their the market sentiment. But the reality is, at one end, these companies are making millions of dollars. At the other end, at the cost of the exchequer and the taxpayer, the patients are falling ill. And the hospitals are getting overcrowded. And then we get the blame that Indians have a bad DNA. Indians don't have a bad DNA. The Indians have an excellent DNA, but the products being pushed into India, they have a bad quality. So I think we have to get the story, the narrative also right.
Is it also because of us? Is it also because of the consumer? Because we just don't ask as many questions. We'll simply gulp anything that is shoved our way. They're pushing the same palm oil ridden chocolates down our throats, and guilty as charged here as well. But, and we don't even say anything. Dr. Bajaj, would a simple, big, bold, red lettered, high sugar, high salt, that kind of warning, would it genuinely change behavior? Do you think so?
See, I'm just asking if the companies can give this traffic light kind of an environment in the European countries, if they can give big bold packaging in the European countries, what is stopping them from doing it in India? If it changes behavior or not is not my question. My question is, why are we not giving a choice to these consumers? Why are we not informing them? Whatever, the companies are going as far as saying that the doctors should teach the consumers on portion sizes and, making healthier choices. The doctors get to see the patient when they're already turning diabetic. I don't want to talk to the patient on how to manage their diabetes. I want teachers talking to students on how to prevent diabetes, how to read the labels properly. And, if you're hiding the information on the back of the label in black and white, that is actually just for the lawyers. Those labels are not for consumers. Consumers have to see labels upfront and see them very bold.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like let the consumer walk off the cliff, but at least put a signboard that says there's a cliff up ahead. Let the consumers do it themselves. Let them walk to their own death, but at least inform them. Transparency is the real issue here. Shikhaji, you see, because you're the right person with the right kind of expertise under your belt for the same, where does legitimate recipe localization, something that you spoke about in your opening submission, come to an end? And where does consumer protection problem really begin? Because I understand that there's a thin line. And when it's money which makes the world go around involved, just like the doctor told us, most of those things happen for the legal aspects of it, not for actual transparency of information. So where does legitimate recipe localization come to an end, and where does consumer protection really begin?
Excellent question. See, I'll give you an example. Suppose if you're making a product for India, you might make it having more spices, maybe a lal mirch, a red chili or a green chili. But it does not mean that you will use substandard oil. So if the oil content is the same and you're using, say, less 10 grams here and 10 grams in Europe, and in Europe you're using 10 grams of sunflower oil, but in India you're using 8 grams of substandard palm oil and 2 grams of sunflower oil, it is compromising on the ingredient quality, not the taste or the flavor. Similarly, if in Europe you're using a flavor which is natural and in India you're using more chemical flavor, again, the flavor is the same, but you're using a natural versus a chemical. So it is, so yes, I would say localization, you change the flavors, but you don't change the quality of flavors or you don't change the quality of oil. The problem here is the compromise in the quality of ingredients and not per se the ingredients themselves.
Yeah, and just to separate the emotion from the regulation, Shikhaji, is there anything inherently wrong in the first place with a multinational, with a big consumer giant selling a different formulation in our country?
There is technically, if you say health is the basic parameter
Yeah.
and quality benchmarks are the basic parameter. So, for example, if you're selling a product, if you're selling, say, any kind of product in European markets, and then as far as the health benchmarks are concerned, the quality benchmarks are concerned, you change the ingredients to use a lesser quality ingredient. That is the problem. So the health benchmarks have to be taken care of. Yes, you can make a particular pasta in Europe which may have more cheese, and you may make a pasta in India which has lesser cheese but some other healthier ingredient. But it does not mean that you use cheese, but you use palm oil cheese. You're not even using a dairy cheese.
Understood.
So I'm just giving an example.
Yeah.
But it is like, for example, sugar. Now, we all know that the more sugar you add, the weight of the product goes up. That means that the consumer is buying more sugar, like typically in baby foods. So to increase the weight of the box, you are adding more sugar and less of the protein and the other nutritional value. That's what I call is compromising on health, whether it is for children or adults or even KitKat. Now, we all know that cocoa is expensive, and
Yeah.
if you are putting less of the expensive stuff and more of the cheaper
Cheap stuff, yeah.
which is, so you are compromising on the quality.
And
you are
and
calling it
indirectly
chocolate.
then you're compromising on the health, and there is actually no way you can turn that around. And it is
Yes.
such a sorry state of affairs. Professor Bijon Kumar Misra, consumer policy expert, with us on the broadcast as well. Many thanks, Professor, for taking up the time. The sorry state of affairs is the fact that instead of putting that big bold warning out on the front of the label, front of the package, we'll say stuff like 100% organic without it being 100% organic. We'll say 100% pure or 100% honey without it actually being 100% honey. Professor, let me bring you in to this discussion, this discourse. It's been very nice. It's been funny yet sad. I say funny because it's the fact that we don't even utter a word, but we gulp down everything that's coming from the West, no matter what the recipe is, no matter how bad it is for our own health. And we'll come to the health aspect. Dr. Bajaj, don't go anywhere, because we need to understand 450 million that might be overweight or obese by 2050. That's a Lancet study. And yet we have these swanky looking aisles. And I myself love a trolley, take it around the aisles in a grocery store. You love all those colors, very nicely lit. You'd want to pick up and take everything back home. But Professor, why has India struggled for so long to introduce clear front of the pack warning system when roughly 20 countries have already these kinds of warning labels? It's a norm out in the West. That same product we eat here does not have that warning, and we're absolutely okay with it.
You see, Kabir, you must understand that all standards are developed in consultation with all stakeholders. Unfortunately, in India, we don't have that practice going. And we import in a manner where, as an importing country, it is our responsibility to have a look at all these products which are getting imported, whether they adhere to our law, whether they adhere to our standard, whether they communicate in the manner which needs to be communicated to the consumers. Now, you asked one very pertinent question, that why is the front of the labeling not coming and getting implemented in our country? Because, let me explain to you, one and only reason is there is a huge resistance from the industry to do this or to make it happen. And what we are trying to understand is that we cannot ape the West in a blanket. We just can't copy and paste. We have to become India-centric. We have to understand what Indians need to consume and what they don't need to consume as per their dietary pattern. In terms of how they access food, what manner they access food, what quantity they consume, in what manner they consume. All these things have to be understood.
Yeah.
Now, our packaged food is minuscule compared to the loose food which is being consumed by the citizens in my country. So what we all have to understand that the front of the pack labeling not only needs to be simple, easy to understand,
Yeah. Yeah.
cannot be deceptive. You see, most of the time we find that the communication is very deceptive. It's mischievous. It is misleading, which leads to being qualified as an unfair trade practice. So India should develop their own standards, policies, implementation plan, and the regulator is supposed to have a look at all these issues. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen in my country. You try to export any food product from India to other countries, you try it, you will not be able to export till you have not followed their importing countries' laws,
Yeah.
and rules and regulations. You have to make sure that you change your product in the manner they want in their country, not in the manner you want to sell. But it's just the other way around in my country. You can sell anything you want in my country, in any manner you want, because there is no check, there is no regulatory oversight, and poor consumers, they don't come
Yeah.
to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as you very correctly said, they go for glamour, they go for, some kind of an attractive.
And we
package.
fall for it. We fall for it, Professor. We fall for it. The minute they put it on the shelf, we fall for it. And I think the companies are legally allowed to sell different recipes in different countries. But like we've already established, the consumer has the right to know why those differences exist in the first place. I'm again drawing that analogy. If somebody wants to jump off the, from the edge, they're free to do so. At least tell them that, there is a ledge up ahead. There is, there is a particular problem up ahead in that particular packaging. Coca-Cola, just like Dr. Bajaj was telling us, uses a traffic light style information in many of those markets. But coming to that 450 million overweight and obese, by 2050, that particular number is so staggering, Dr. Bajaj. What needs to be done? How do we fix that? Or is this a problem that is beyond fixing? The NFHS data, if I could just cite some of that, has already showcased that it's not an urban problem anymore. In the rural setup also, the waistline is increasing, and how?
So I totally agree with you, Kabir. It is a rising tide and it is a scary prospect of what we are facing. We set up hospitals and they get filled up so quickly, and then we don't really understand the true cost of these 450 million people with diabetes, obesity, hypertension. The diabetes incidence is going to rise the most rapidly. We are already the second largest number of diabetics in the world. And then you see, you don't understand the true cost of diabetes. Nobody does. Diabetes, we feel, is a very small disease. Take one tablet every day. But we know that there are 100 million diabetics in India right now. We know 1/3 of them will end up into kidney failure. We are amputating one foot every 5 minutes in India due to diabetes.
Wow.
Can you imagine the costs of these things, the complications that occur? And it's not like you get an amputation, spend 20,000 or 50,000 rupees on it and your cost is done. No, you are out of a job. You can't go and work in the factory. You can't work in the fields. And a very rich diabetic may manage. They may get a prosthetic limb. They may manage their complications well. But the poor person will not be able to manage. They'll be out of jobs. They will pull their children out of school and start sending them to work because somebody has to work. So this is a matter of equity. It's not just a matter of health. It is a matter of our economy. And a sick economy cannot be a fast-growing economy.
I think it's a matter of patriotism as well. It's a matter of human resource.
Absolutely.
It's a matter of patriotism. I mean,
if
we have debates about politics over
that.
Vande Mataram and national anthem and national songs. This is as important and as patriotic as it gets. The future generation, the human resource, if we don't take care of it, then who actually will? I've got one final set of questions for all three of my panelists. I'm going to start with you, Doctor, since I have you. A quick follow-up. If you had to pick a global brand in the Indian supermarket tomorrow, if you're visiting the supermarket tomorrow, what is the one thing that you'd want the packet to tell you, from a clinical standpoint as well, before you pick that shiny looking packet or bottle or can or drink or eatery into your shopping basket?
So, see, Kabir, as I said in the very beginning, I am not pushing for banning anything. I am not pushing for saying that they should develop exactly the same products. I understand their issues. There are economic issues. They have to price these lower. They have to make them according to the taste that the Indians like. What I'm just asking for is I'll pick a product that tells me very clearly what it is and how it is packed and what it is in comparison to the others. A samosa that I eat doesn't come labeled as a healthy treat for me, right? I know this is a samosa. I know this is unhealthy for me, but I still eat it. It is my own conscious choice. The brand that is transparent, the brand that speaks openly, the brand that is the first to implement this front of the label color-coded packaging, I'll definitely go for that, and I'll urge all the consumers to go for that.
Okay. You see, Shikhaji, I think when you go to the supermarket and you pick something up, you want the product to tell you exactly what it is. But the problem here is that in the days and times of digital revolution, we can barely, sit down and read 5 pages of a book. We can barely look at a video that's more than 4 minutes long. We don't have the time. So, that's where the product, which is absolutely lying to our faces, 100% organic, 100% fresh, 100% pure, we'll pick that up and we'll buy it and we'll quickly throw it in our shopping bag. The industry argues, and this is where I think that maybe the industry, the consumer giants have a point. They say the warning labels are confusing, they're ineffective. How much weight do you think the regulators should be giving that argument now that the Supreme Court has also brought this under their scanner?
So I would say that the industry or these brands, foreign brands, their motive is to make profits, right?
Yeah.
They're not sitting here to look after the health of the country, but it is the regulator's job to make sure that whatever its citizens are eating is at par with international standards, and they're protecting the health of the citizens because the exchequer is paying for the health. So I think it is incumbent upon the regulator to not get arm twisted by these foreign brands or any large companies. They're the conscience keepers of the nation, and they have to put their foot down.
Yeah, okay. My final and closing comment, taking from Professor Misra here. Professor, because I like the word that you used in the beginning, you said these are misleading and mischievous brandings, mischievous being that word. What would a genuinely good Indian front of a pack labeling system really look like?
Yeah. It should be number one in the language which I understand. That's very important. Not technical jargons which I don't understand. So a consumer should be able to understand in a language which the consumer wants it to be understood, and they just want that limited information which will assure me that I am protected, I am safe, and I am healthy. And that is all I need as an information. I don't want a whole lot of information in the label because I don't read them. I trust my system.
Okay.
I trust my regulator. I trust my lawmakers. I trust my policy makers. I trust them because I know that they are being paid out of my money. I pay for them, so they are looking after me. So when they are looking after me, why the hell should I spend time and effort to read and to understand and decipher, decode? By that time, I could have had much more other things better to do. So I want simple language, in the language I understand, in the manner what I can understand, do a kind of a study, figure out what is that, and then put those information on in a very bold, in a very understandable manner, which will attract my eyes and then will motivate me to pick up that product and use it. That's all. I want trust to be built. That's all I want.
Yeah.
My
Easier said than done, and a difficult task, Professor, because
that is why we are paying such hefty salaries and who should be solving difficult tasks. If it was easy, we didn't need them.
A global brand can change its recipe for the market. But I think we've established, and I'm again, many thanks to all my panelists. The question is whether it should change the standard. And our health is the paramount priority here. India's consumers deserve transparency about what they are buying, what's in that packet that looks shiny or can, and why it differs from what is being sold elsewhere. And I think that's the difference. That's the bottom line here. Let's hope that good sense prevails and this really draws that kind of consumer awareness. That was the idea with this segment. Shikha Sharma, Professor Misra, Dr. Bajaj, many thanks for taking out the time and speaking to us here. All right, then, a quick commercial breather. But on the other side, we've got two very credible voices. This is again a food safety story, but this is going beyond dirty kitchens and what's in the packet. This is about a toxic fruit that could also land up at your doorstep because of the e-commerce and the e-tailers. Very